Hello everyone, welcome to our first session of the Google Agency Team's Summer School Hangout series. Today's session is going to be focused on Remarketing 3.0, which includes a bunch of recent advances to our remarketing product. My name is Rachel Ragowin, and I'm an agency training lead here at Google. I'm focused on learning and development for my agency partners across the organization. I've been at Google about 10 years, and one fun fact about me is that in 5th grade, I won a book report contest and appeared on the kids show Reading Rainbow. I'm also joined by my colleague here, Ayumi Rogers, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Thanks, Rachel. Hi, everyone. My name is Ayumi Rogers. I am a regional product expert for dynamic remarketing. I've been at Google for 7.5 years. And an interesting tidbit about me is that I've moved over 10 times in my life. So it's a good thing I like meeting people. And yeah, it's nice to meet all of you guys. Thanks for joining.
Thanks. So before we begin, let's do a little bit of housekeeping just so we can be sure that everybody knows how today's session is going to run. So first off, I just want to remind everybody that our session is being recorded today. We will be sending out a link to this recording if you'd like to access it at a later date or share it with any of your colleagues. For those of you who are connected to us under G+ or have RSVP'd yes to the event, you will be able to comment and ask questions throughout the Hangout series. There'll be a box below our presentation that says say something, and you can leave your questions and comments in there throughout the course of the Hangout. We will be allotting time at the end of our presentation for Ayumi to answer all your burning questions when it comes to Remarketing 3.0. Another thing I'd like to point out is that it's really important for all of you guys to fill out a feedback form that I'll be sharing a link to at the close of this presentation. What that feedback form allows us to do is a few things. One, see how this presentation resonated with you guys and allow us to make further improvements as we develop the rest of this summer school hangout series. Two, it's going to allow us to share with you guys our follow-up materials, including some one-sheeters, some helpful links, etc. And then thirdly, those who have submitted their email address to us will be entered to win a raffle where we'll be raffling off a bunch of fun prizes at the end of the series in general. So please feel free to participate and give us those responses within the form. Last but not least, we'll also be sharing with you guys both the Google Plus page to the agency training team as well as the remarketing team so that you guys can keep up on all the happenings and future events. So with that, let's move ahead to talking about the learning objectives for today. So the first thing that we want to make sure that you guys are getting out of today's session is that you have a full understanding of what those advances and features are that make up Remarketing 3.0. And that with this knowledge, you're then able to go back to your clients and help them to develop a strategy to take advantage of these new functionalities and help them to get more conversions. Because at the end of the day, that's really what this whole entire series is about, is giving you guys additional tools in your toolkit so that you can look at your clients' metrics, look at their goals, and see if some of these are potential solutions to help you guys when it comes to meeting those objectives. One thing I do want to point out is that this particular Hangout is not focused on Remarketing 101. While we will touch upon it in one slide, it's really focused more on these new advances and new features that we're talking about. The one thing that I wanted to point out before we get into the meat of everything is that this is one of a series of Hangouts. So next week on July 31st, we will be focused on Remarketing 3.0 and how to implement that in the best way possible. The week following that, we'll be having a session on how to optimize with Remarketing 3.0. We're then going to have 2 additional kind of mini-series in our host of summer school series here. One focused on mobile and optimization and a lot of other topics now that we are fully in an enhanced campaign world. And then we'll also be having a few sessions on TrueView and specifically how to make TrueView work for performance. So hopefully all of you guys can join those sessions as well. So let's focus now on today's session. What are we going to cover in our time together? So first off, we're going to talk about Remarketing 3.0 and what's exciting about these new advances and changes and why you should get excited about them too. Second, we're going to talk about what's specifically special about Google Remarketing and what are those advantages that this offers that you can take to your clients. Third, we'll take a walk through some case studies of folks who've already achieved success and seen some positive impact and results utilizing these features. We're then going to touch briefly on the Google Display Network and the DoubleClick Bid Manager exchange and help you guys better understand the best way to use these platforms. And then we're going to circle things up at the end with key takeaways and make sure that everybody's clear on what are those attributes that really stand out when it comes to Remarketing 3.0 and what can you offer your clients in terms of this set of features. We'll then leave plenty of time at the end for Ayumi to address any burning questions you guys have about remarketing and hopefully make sure that you guys walk out of today's hangout feeling very confident about Remarketing 3.0. So let's begin. So we know that most of you have a pretty straightforward goal, and it's get people to your client's website and get them to convert. But what we all know is that rarely do people convert on that first visit. In fact, 96% of people leave before they take any action that you want them to take on the site. And even people who get as far as doing things like getting to the shopping cart, there's an abandonment rate of 70%. And also in this day and age, we see that people are doing a lot more shopping and looking around before they make that purchase. In fact, typically people visit 2 to 4 sites before they actually make that purchase. So the bottom line is this: growing conversions is not an easy business, and we know that this is something that you all are tasked with. And we think that remarketing is one of those solutions that can really help with this. So to illustrate remarketing, let's say that we all work for a company called Funny Furry Feet Company, and they sell novelty slippers. So through all your marketing efforts, you've been able to successfully drive 100 people to your website. Those 100 people get dropped a cookie on them, placed on their browsers that gives them a unique and anonymous visitor ID. Of those 100 people, 4 of them convert. And depending on the pages this person visits, they are added to 1 or more remarketing lists. And then that list consists of those unique visitor IDs. So some common lists are typically, did they get to the shopping cart? Did they get to a particular product or service page or home page, etc.? And you can then use these remarketing lists to selectively serve ads across Google to these visitors so that you can try and entice them to come back to your site and to convert. So in this case with remarketing, we were able to then earn 3 more conversions. Because remarketing campaigns let you take advantage of the fact that you've learned something about your users' past activity, the ads that you serve to them are usually more relevant because you now have that knowledge of what are they interested in, what pages did they visit, what habits did they do. And with these more relevant ads, we typically see higher click-through rates, higher conversion rates, and a lower cost per acquisition with remarketing. Remarketing is really about giving you that second chance to capture that lead or close that sale by bringing people back who are already familiar with your brand and product and bringing them back to your site to finish off. So what is Remarketing 3.0? Remarketing 3.0 it's a Google term that we've used to describe 3 major feature launches. The first one is Remarketing List Search Ads, or RLSAs as we call them around here. And this feature is now available to everyone. The second is the Google Display Network Dynamic Remarketing. From this point forward, we'll be referring to the Google Display Network as the GDN So just want to make sure if you hear me mention GDN, that's what we're referring to. And with this feature, anyone who is using the Google Merchant Center can take advantage of the GDN Dynamic Remarketing feature. Third, similar audiences is now available to all as well. And we'll go into each of these more specifically as we get into the meat of the back. But all three of these features are now open for public use and something that you can take advantage of. And across all of these, there's a backbone of a single tagging system that all of this is backed by. So now with this single tag, we enable you as the agency and your advertisers to have one site-wide tag to reach visitors across search, across display, including the Google Display Network as well as YouTube. So one tag is able to allow you to do cross-channel remarketing across all of your campaigns from a single AdWords interface. We'll spend some more time diving into each of these more specifically. So today with remarketing, one thing to keep in mind is that it's not just people who have visited your site. We're also able to remarket against people who have viewed your videos, have used your apps, or have followed you on Google+. So the population in which you can potentially reach out to is that much greater. In terms of where Google's thinking about its long-term vision for remarketing, our goal is to enable you to reach your audience across all media, regardless of what device they're on. And with that, we really feel like remarketing is becoming an ecosystem in and of itself, because this means that for you and your clients, you'll have more options to remarket, and therefore you'll need more guidance from your agency to figure out how to optimally reach that audience across all these different places. So now that we have a good understanding overall, let's talk a little bit more specifically about remarketing lists for search ads. As sophisticated search marketers as you all are, I think most of you know that an identical query is not the same. If we have 3 people who've typed in "buy bear claw slippers," they're not all the same. Behind each of them is a different person with different needs, coming from a different location, different time of day, different device, etc. And then there's the difference of if one of them has visited your site before or not. As a marketer, you might want to treat this person differently. You might want to bid differently, or you might want to show different ads because they've already shown that they've had some interest and gone to your site, and this would allow you to maximize your ROI. Remarketing lists for search combine the two greatest signals of intent. One, search, the fact that people are raising their hand and telling you what they're interested in, and then 2, remarketing, the fact that we know that these people visited your site in the past. People who visited your site in the past are more likely to consider your products and more likely to convert in the future. And now you're able to segment these search audiences and refine your campaign accordingly. So, of course, this signal is about being available at the perfect time, at the exact moment that your visitors are actively researching and shopping across Google. What remarketing lists for search lets you do is 1, tailor your ads specifically to them. So for instance, you can offer them a specific offer or sale against a product category that you know that they visited. So for instance, if we go with the slippers, we can say if we have some understanding of whether they're looking for kids' slippers versus women's or men's, we can tailor that copy against them. Secondly, we can optimize our bids differently and potentially bid higher for people who have gone to your website, or even higher for people who've gotten further down the funnel and gotten to particular product categories, such as animal slippers or holiday slippers. Third, you can broaden your keywords to include category keywords like gifts during peak seasons for Christmas or Father's Day or something like that. And with this expansion, it can allow you to reach those people who visited your site on some broader terms. It's really a challenge in this dynamic space. It's really changing what's happening in search and making a much more dynamic space. The fact that you can now add this remarketing layer into search. And we've seen that it's been really successful in generating huge return. Google recently did an analysis of about 144 different advertisers who were using remarketing on search. And we saw a 12% incremental conversions across all of their search spend. And they were able to apply remarketing to about 10% of their search spend. So we definitely see that it's successful in providing people that bump and getting people conversions, more conversions than they had gotten before. So now let's move ahead and talk about dynamic remarketing on the GDN. GDN Dynamic Remarketing is now available to anyone who's using the Google Merchant Center. And with those folks, we're now able to provide them dynamic ads to users based on their history of the site. So a user can hit any number of hundreds of thousands of your product pages, and this allows you to create extremely granular lists of users from each of those pages. And then that allows you to dynamically rotate creative that might appeal to the people who visited that page or multiple pages. So think about all the time that it saves you by the fact that we're now able to automate this process, and you no longer have to write copy for each of these very, very specific lists of people who got to those very specific pages because of this automated process. And the fact that we've now created these hyper-granular lists. With this, it's Google's product recommendation engine that's working for you. So it's all of our great technology that's able to take it and drive performance, because we can create ads for you that have extremely high creative relevancy. So we take into account signals like what products they viewed, related products, the things they clicked on, the time frame, etc. And one of the characteristics I love most about this recommendation engine is that it showcases other products in your feed that a user might not have seen. So in fact, we've seen that 40% of conversions come from products that the user didn't initially see in their first visit to you, but are related. So dynamic remarketing has really become a must-have for retailers specifically because it helps them to amplify their remarketing results and allows them to take all of their information from the Google Merchant Center and create these very specific, very custom ads. Currently, we have launched fully in retail. We're doing some pilots right now in travel, including hotel and flights. We're also doing pilots in education. And then we have a bunch of other industries coming soon. So stay tuned to see if this is relevant to your client in the future, if it's not relevant to them now. So last but not least, the third feature of Remarketing 3.0 is something we call similar audiences. So similar audiences is now something that's widely available to remarketing users. And basically what we do is we take the best remarketing lists you have, and then we find people identical out there on the web who've not been to your site but have behavioral attributes similar to the people who have. So it's basically kind of like finding all the lookalikes of all the people who've already come to your website. So it's really allowing you to expand beyond just your remarketing lists, but to get similar performance because you're targeting a similar audience. So we found that typical advertisers who take advantage of this, of which we did a study looking at over 2,000 advertisers, that those who use similar audiences were able to see a 41% incremental increase in conversions. And we saw that with that, 29% of them were coming directly from similar audiences, and that their cost per acquisitions were as good as the other remarketing campaigns that they were running. We also saw that an additional 12% were added to the remarketing list. So you have the chance to get new visitors that look like the people who come to your site and bring them in, but you're also then able to remarket any of those people who came and actually went to your site and got added to your remarketing list. So it's a double benefit because you get both direct and indirect results and a user base. And we're seeing that the click-through rates in similar audiences are double what they were from last October to this October. And that's because our technology is getting better, and with the back-end changes that we've made, we will see those results continue to increase because our technology is getting smarter and smarter over time. When it comes to similar audiences, there are 4 key benefits that we can review. The first one is reach and scale of the GDN across all screens. The ability to, whether people are on desktop or mobile, etc., we're able to find and serve ads to these users. Second is just simplicity and ease of use. So not a lot of effort in order to get similar audiences started, and then you get to take advantage of this highly sophisticated algorithm that Google has built on the back end to help find these people for you. It's a free tool. So you only pay for the ads as you would normally any of your other ads on a CPC or CPM basis, etc. And then the performance has been extremely strong. So with similar audiences and the advances in targeting that we have, we've seen that advertisers on average are getting a CPA between remarketing and contextual targeting. So it's right around that area in terms of what you can expect for performance. And that this has really been great, and we've seen that people have been able to get incremental users and incremental purchases or whatever those goals are that you have, incremental to what you are currently running by the use of similar audiences. So we know that we have a lot of folks out there who are using remarketing, whether through us or through another party. But we wanted to talk a little bit more about what makes our tools and these new features so special. We know that remarketing is a bedrock across those of you who manage performance campaigns. In fact, we see that 80% of our largest advertisers use remarketing, whether through us or someone else, and that people are reaching success in that way. So let's talk a little bit more about how you can think about these particular attributes and benefits of Remarketing 3.0. So we have 3 key benefits. The first and foremost is the ability that we have to remarket across search, across the Google Display Network and YouTube, and that you can track and reach back out to these users cross-channel with one tag. I think that's a huge benefit in the fact that there's ease of use, there's that ability to manage everything from your AdWords account, etc., all in one place with one tag. Second, transparency and accountability. And then thirdly, tailored creative. So now we're going to go into each of these a little bit more specifically. So when we're talking about the fact that we have this great reach and scale across all of our different platforms, success with dynamic remarketing also depends on our ability for you to see your users again once they leave the site. So it's not just about capturing them, it's about having the opportunity to then represent your brand again. The fact that Google has 94% reach of these users, we can maximize your chance to be able to re-engage with your audience once again. And I think something to keep in mind when it comes to the Google Display Network is that it's not just about the millions of sites that we have in the network, it's also about the diversity of sites that we have within it. So you're able to reach audiences in many different frames of mind and able to show them again your ads and get them back to your site to do those actions that you want them to take. So second, if we want to talk a little bit more about transparency, Like with all of your AdWords campaigns, you get kind of the 3 P's of accountability: performance, transparency over the placement, and price. And together, all these things really foster trust. So unlike some other solutions out there, you'll know what you're paying for per click. You'll have control over where your ads appear, and how each audience segment is performing. So you get access to the AdWords interface so that you can monitor all of these things. And you don't have to wait days or weeks or reports to make adjustments. You can go into the system at that moment and have control over what that campaign looks like, make changes, etc. In addition to the standard reporting that you get from AdWords, you'll also have access to additional information. So for remarketing lists for search ads, you'll get audience-level reports that show how your lists are converting on search. And for the Google Display Network demo report, will show you how GDN remarketing performance by demographic. So these are 2 different data points that you weren't able to see in the past. And then third, let's talk a little bit more about creative. So another advantage is your ability to use remarketing lists to deliver tailored creative for both your search and your display campaigns, including text and image ads. So it allows you first to have a very personalized creative to viewers. So on search, you can convert those site visitors as they search through these custom ad texts and really land them on a customized landing page based off of their past experience on your site. And then on display, for those who are using the Google Merchant Center, they can now reach customers and have ads dynamically tailored to them across all devices that integrates the information from the Google Merchant Center as well. So this is just a really great way to create that one-to-one experience between what users are looking for and what ads you show them. And with these automated ads, we can allow you to keep your brand's look and feel. So on display, it allows you to take it with the Google Display Network, with this dynamic ads, we allow you to take advantage of over 50 templates. You can also upload your logo, colors, etc. to make sure that we're really capturing the look and feel of your ads. So it's really putting together and merging together your brand identity along with the things that we can customize based off of the information that we have about that user. So it's really going to help to drive performance in a really strong way. And there's even additional tools out there that can help you to achieve stronger ROI while you're taking advantage of all these features. So one thing I wanted to point out is Google's real-time bidding solution. So many of you might know it as Conversion Optimizer, but what that allows you to do is on the back end, we can find you the optimal bid based on thousands of signals that we understand in terms of age or gender or interest, how recently they've been to your site, what device they're on, how deep in the purchase funnel they got to, etc. And then all of this information happens in real time and constantly updates. And as a result, the bidding becomes that much more specific to what we know, and it allows you to bid optimally for each individual impression, which would help to increase the likelihood for conversions, as well as potentially help you get a higher ROI in comparison to what you might be doing with manual bidding. So hopefully in this section we've gotten you all really jazzed about Remarketing 3.0. And as you know, a lot of these features have been in beta, so there have been some marketers out there who've gotten a chance to test these before we launch them to everyone. And therefore, we already have a host of success stories that we're able to share. So now I'm actually going to pass the mic over to Ayumi, and she's going to walk you guys through both the case studies as well as our section on the GDN and DoubleClick. So I'll pass it over to her.
Thanks, Rachel. That was a great summary. So, as Rachel said, I'm going to now use the opportunity to just share a few examples of how we've seen advertisers leverage some of these new solutions that we have. And yeah, we've been working hard to come up with these case studies so that we can help other advertisers realize their potential by leveraging some of our new features. So let me just start off with the first example, World Stores. So World Stores' objective was to increase their search presence among users who had been to their site before but didn't convert. So as we just learned, we can now do this with remarketing lists for search ads. So what World Stores had to do technically was just to put this tag on their website. And just by doing that, they were able to create a remarketing list of users that had been to their site but didn't convert. Right, so with that tag, they were able to create this list, and what they did then was simply layer that on top of their existing search campaign. And so suddenly, they were able to bid more aggressively for search terms for these specific users. And what this really allowed them to do was, again, not only understand kind of these users that are coming to their site, but literally improve the performance of their existing search campaigns by being able to bid uniquely on visited their site before versus not visited their site before at all. So with this performance, they were actually able to free up some budget to even run on the weekends, which they hadn't been budgeting for before. So it really opened up a lot more opportunity that way. As a result of this strategic bidding, they basically saw their click-through rates quadruple. Their conversion rates more than doubled. Their cost per conversion dropped by almost half. And overall, they were able to achieve almost 10% incremental conversions coming from their search campaign. So this is absolutely phenomenal. When people usually talk about remarketing, I really don't think people think about how it could improve their other campaigns like search. But like Rachel said, we're working really, really hard to think about your experience as an advertiser, just this holistic solution with one tag. What are all the different amazing ways we can improve your experience? So this is a great example of how with this one tag, we're able to boost the performance of your existing search campaign. So great story there. The next example I want to share is a client called Campmore. And Campmore had two main goals. The first was to re-engage with past site visitors. So as we know, this is the basics of remarketing, which is the ability to, with one tag, understand who's coming to your site and what they're doing on your site. And by using these tags, being able to easily segment your site visitors into different segments, and then using ads to then customize the messaging that you send to each of these segments. Their second goal, Campmore's second goal, was to also increase awareness around some of their lesser-known products. So I believe they're mostly known for their camping gear, but they also have other things like yoga equipment, for example. And they wanted to really bring that to the forefront, bring it in front of their audience. So what Campmore did was to leverage dynamic ads. So essentially dynamic remarketing. And they layered these dynamic ads on top of their remarketing lists. And so one of the benefits of our dynamic solution is that we have a really powerful recommendation engine that displays an array of products within the ad itself. And the recommendation engine uses tons of different signals to try to identify the best performing products that we think would resonate most with the viewers of the ad. And what's interesting is the recommendation engine doesn't only show products that the user had seen before during their original visit to your site. The recommendation engine is a great way to surface new products that that user hadn't even seen during their original visit. And in fact, I want to say the majority of conversions that we get from dynamic remarketing campaigns actually come from these products that the users hadn't seen during their original visit, but do resonate well with the viewers of the ad. So just something to keep in mind there. And the result for Campmore was that they were able to triple their click-through rate just via using super relevant ads mapped to these segments with very relevant messaging. And they were able to see a nearly 40% drop in CPAs. So another example of a great way to use your remarketing list in order to meet your objectives. And the last example that I want to share is Lowe's Hotels. And this is really exciting because travel is the first vertical that we sort of ventured out into after working with retailers. So I'm really excited to be able to share some phenomenal results from a non-retailer advertiser. So Lowe's Hotels, their main objectives was to grow revenue and also to reach new customers. So again, typically not what you think of when you think of remarketing, but they were able to do this through remarketing and similar audiences, which Rachel talked about earlier. So the way they got started was the account team worked with a client to move some of their offline budgets to online, got them started with the Google Display Network, and specifically remarketing. They saw some great results, and they were able to justify spending some test budget on similar audiences on one of their campaigns, the Regency Hotel campaigns. And they saw some great results from that campaign alone, 60% increase in revenue, while actually also seeing a drop in CPAs for that campaign. And then overall, when we looked at the overall performance results of the remarketing and similar audiences efforts combined, we saw that they saw a 10% increase in revenue and bookings, as well as a 5% increase in unique site visitors. So by using these various strategies, they were able to absolutely meet their marketing objectives. And actually, I just want to take a moment to touch on the fact that one thing that I do often with advertisers is look at their combined remarketing and similar audience kind of performance results. I like to look at them in a combined way because I think that so you cannot expect the same CPAs coming from your similar audiences campaigns as you do from your remarketing campaigns, and that's kind of obvious because these are users that might not be familiar with your brand. They hadn't engaged with your brand yet, so that's understandable. But what similar audiences does really well is drive really good candidates of potential users to your website, also known as adding them as new cookies to your user list, to your remarketing list. So similar audiences directly fuels your remarketing lists that you can then scale out your remarketing efforts to these new users. So by looking at the combined blended CPAs and things like that, I find that you can often get a better picture of the impact of doing both of these together. So anyway, all that to say, Lowe's Hotels saw really great results when they implemented similar audiences, and that was just for one of their campaigns. So anyway, as you can see, with a right remarketing strategy, you can really boost the overall performance of your advertising efforts, whether your objectives involve, traditional remarketing where you're actually re-engaging with, past site visitors, or even doing things like new user acquisition and boosting existing search performance. So hopefully those were some interesting examples to share. Also, before I pass it back over to Rachel, I wanted to touch on one more thing, which is a burning question that might be on some of your minds, which is when to use remarketing with Google Display Network and when to use remarketing with DoubleClick Bid Manager. If this is not a burning question for you, then you can just disregard the next two slides. And just to keep things simple, if you're already a heavy AdWords user, you should be doing remarketing with the Google Display Network via AdWords. So for the rest of you, these are some general rules of thumb that I just wanted to share. So if you are eligible or already using the Google Merchant Center or a hotel feed, you should absolutely be running remarketing with the Google Display Network. And that's mostly because you've already invested in putting all of your information into these feeds that speak directly to our AdWords interface, basically, and those feeds speak directly to the ad creatives themselves. So we can pull all of that information live by using signals we have about the users that we get from the tag. We can dynamically change the ads that we're showing to each individual user. So if you're using either of these feeds already, you should absolutely be running remarketing with the Google Display Network. Another way to look at it is if you're a heavy AdWords user and you're not using DoubleClick, again, you should absolutely be running remarketing with the Google Display Network. So we don't want you, basically in a nutshell, we're not recommending that you change the platform that you're already working with. So if you're already working with DoubleClick or any part of the DoubleClick stack, you should look into running remarketing with DoubleClick Bid Manager. There are some instances where it might make sense to run remarketing both with Google Display Network and through DoubleClick Bid Manager in tandem, but this is something you should definitely consult your Google rep and figure out what is the best solution for you. Again, those are sort of more fringe cases, but in general, if you're a heavy AdWords user, we mostly encourage advertisers to test out remarketing with Google Display Network, especially if you have a feed and you're eligible to use dynamic ads. Our solution is, at this time, more fully baked into the Google Display Network via AdWords. So I know I'm kind of repeating the same thing over and over, but this is an issue that comes up quite often, so I just wanted to be very clear about this. I know that this is a very simplified version of what many of you might be going through, but again, talk to your Google rep and they can help you figure out the best way to proceed. So one last thing that I wanted to point out, which is a very important yet little known fact, is that with the Google Display Network, you can actually reach additional inventory that is currently not accessible through the exchange. So a lot of people don't know about this, but there are about 10 billion impressions a day of text-only inventory that is not accessible through any other means than to create a remarketing campaign through the AdWords interface. So I know that a lot of advertisers are already running remarketing through other vendors and believe that they're already reaching Google Display Network. But again, I just wanted to point out that there's a huge chunk of inventory that's actually not being accessed, and it needs to be accessed directly through AdWords. And so let me talk a little bit about this. So this is text inventory on inventory like Gmail and other owned and operated properties, but it can also be found on sites like New York Times that reserve inventory specifically for the Google auctions. And this text inventory performs really well. This is something that we look into pretty regularly, and basically consistently we're finding that when you run remarketing campaigns with both text and display, you see a dramatically better CPA than if you were to run remarketing with display only. And so again, you know, great performance. And so not only would you get incremental inventory through running with remarketing with Google Display Network, you would also probably be seeing a better CPA by introducing text into the mix. So for the US, what this means for you is about an 8% incremental reach in terms of new users, and also another way to look at it is 25% additional opportunities to re-engage with your user. So yeah, I just wanted to mention this, something to keep in mind when you're planning your next remarketing campaigns. So I'm now going to pass it back to Rachel. She's going to wrap it up with some key takeaways, and then I'll be back to answer any questions that you guys have.
Thanks, Ayumi. Just need to unmute there. So we want to close here to talk about what are the things that we want you guys to walk away with when it comes to Remarketing 3.0. And I think first and foremost is the fact that remarketing works. We've seen 3 case studies, but there are tons more out there. Remarketing as a strategy is a highly effective targeting option. And it really closes the loop by making sure that for the users that you've already paid to drive to your site, whether through paid or earned media, you can then bring them back and convert them and show them an ad again in order to do that. Additionally, when it comes to retail customers or some of those travel customers, you can increase your performance further by delivering those personalized creative to people utilizing dynamic ads. Second, with the advances that we've seen with Remarketing 3.0, it really is about those three attributes that we told you about that really make it up, which is one, the fact that you can reach out to people across search and display, all through one single tag, all through one interface to manage it through, across all of the Google inventory, and deliver tailored creative to the right people at the right time across all of this. And doing so with full transparency and insights so that you can understand what your performance is and make changes and optimizations accordingly. Third, the fact that the setup of this is so easy with the one tag, with the advances and the tools that we have to help you guys bid and serve that creative, etc. It really is something that's going to make it a turnkey solution for you after you've set it up. Our systems actually do a lot of the work for you to ensure that everything is running smoothly. And then last, as we saw with similar audiences, on the GDN, we can help you guys to find those lookalike people and utilize our technology to find new users to further feed your remarketing list and to get you guys those incremental users and incremental conversions. At the end of the day, it's really about how do we help you get more conversions and how do we help you, get better performance. If we want to advance one more slide, it's really about making it easy for you. So how do we get you to have better performing campaigns, spend less time managing these campaigns, and really just deliver and knock it out of the park your clients' goals? Because we want to make you guys look like rock stars, and we really feel strongly that these advances when it comes to Remarketing 3.0 are going to be great at helping you guys really achieve that and to have the success, additional success on top of what you're already having by utilizing these various features.